Tonight in 7 News, Anthony Albanese's embarrassing gaffe sees Scott Morrison claim day one of the election campaign. Drivers beware big fine increases for traffic offences in a bid to slash the road toll. 4 people rescued as churning swells create dangerous rips on the Gold Coast. The shocking moment a child was spotted unsecured on a show ride. The Queen talks about her experience battling COVID. And campaigns for free childcare and rental crisis solutions gather speed.
Live from Brisbane, 7 News with Sharon Goodella.
Good evening. Scott Morrison has seized day one of the election campaign, taking advantage of an awkward blunder made by Anthony Albanese. The Labor leader couldn't name the cash rate or unemployment figure and was left scrambling to correct the embarrassing gaffe.
There are campaign moments that come and go.
Our next PM.
Hi.
It's a full-strength brew on the economy.
And then there are campaign moments that stick. This is one of them.
What's the national unemployment rate?
National unemployment rate at the moment is, I think it's 5.4. Sorry, I'm not sure what it is.
The alternative Prime Minister already defending accusations he lacks economic know-how, unable to nominate one of the leading indicators, quoted constantly in parliamentary debates and the media. His finance spokeswoman had no trouble.
The unemployment rate's at 4%.
A similar issue with recalling the Reserve Bank's official interest rate.
We can do the old Q&A stuff over 50 different. Do you know it? Over 50 different figures.
There were plenty of Qs, but he refused to provide a single A. And Scott Morrison.
Can you nominate the cash rate and the unemployment rate?
Well, 0.1% is the cash rate. The unemployment rate, I'm happy to tell you, was 4% and is falling to a 50-year low.
Resisting the urge to stick the boot into his opponent, who, within 3 hours, issued an apology with a sting in the tail.
Earlier today, I made a mistake. I'm human. But when I make a mistake, I'll fess up to it and I'll set about correcting that mistake. I won't blame someone else, I'll accept responsibility.
Earlier, head-to-head on 7 Sunrise, if only briefly. Interviewed one after the other, Scott Morrison emphasising the economy.
Well, this election is a choice between the proven economic and financial management of my government and a Labor opposition that is unproven, untested and unknown.
But facing his own test over reports Education Minister Alan Tudge's former press secretary, with whom he had a long affair, will be paid more than $500,000 compensation after an investigation into her allegations of bullying and harassment. Yet Mr Tudge remains technically a member of his cabinet.
We held an independent investigation into that matter and there was nothing found that would see Mr Tudge not being able to continue on in the role.
Followed by a small group of Labor protesters campaigning in the New South Wales South Coast marginal of Gilmore, where candidate and former New South Wales Minister Andrew Constance previously said the Prime Minister got the welcome he deserved at nearby Cobargo after the Black Summer bushfires.
I love it that he's on my team because he calls it, and he calls it straight.
Visiting a cannery where $1 million grant helped buy a high-tech labelling machine. With the first news poll of this campaign showing Labor still well ahead, Scott Morrison knows that for him, this election remains far from in the can. Labor's primary down 1 to 37, the Coalition 36, Labor leading 53-47 after preferences, as the Parliament is officially dissolved with a bang. On a day, Anthony Albanese really needed a hug.
How damaging was that slip-up for Anthony Albanese?
Well, Sharon, everyone's entitled to a brain fade now and again. I know viewers don't particularly like gotcha questions, but this one really was a shocker. The unemployment rate has been at the centre of the economic debate day in and day out in the Parliament for most of this year, and for Anthony Albanese not to know it, and he didn't have any idea, is frankly gobsmacking. Now, it's interesting that Scott Morrison didn't rub it in because, of course, he didn't know the price of a loaf of bread just recently and people in glass houses and all that. But for those people who had questions about Anthony Albanese's grasp on detail and particularly on the economy, they might have a few more tonight. Sharon?
Thanks, Mark. Mark Riley reporting there. Well, Queensland will be crucial to deciding who will win government, with several key seats sitting on razor-thin margins. Longman will be one of the tightest contests, with cost of living and healthcare shaping up as key issues.
Caboolture's slogan centres around lifestyle, but for some who live here, the past few years have been a battle.
Wages just aren't, up to scratch. I mean, you go to the shopping centre, you can spend like $230, for a family.
Cost of living is going through the roof.
It's one of many issues facing those who live in Longman, an electorate critical to deciding who will lead the country.
A new bridge on Bribie Island. That's all we really need.
Be able to put food on the table, a job for their kids, good education, good healthcare.
Terry Young holds the seat for the LNP by 3.3%. It's the party's most marginal in the Sunshine State.
The federal government's copped quite a bit of stick about the mandates, and they're state mandates, as most people know.
Labor's Rebecca Fanning worked on state pandemic policies.
My background is working in health policy.
But believes the biggest uphill battle is finding a local GP.
Our community deserves to be able to get good local healthcare services when they need them, and they're just not able to do that right now.
Queensland is crucial to the Morrison government. They already hold 3 out of every 4 seats here. Much of their campaign focus will be trying to retain the electorates they already hold. The coalition's other seats at risk include Leichhardt, Dixon and Brisbane. Labor will have to defend Lilly and Blair.
If you ask them, they say no, it was them. Nobody cares anymore because it's all just hot air, smoke screen and mirrors, and everyone's sick of it.
And it's only day one. Ben Murphy, 7 News.
We have breaking news now on a fire that swept through a Gold Coast caravan park. Georgia Costi, several people are injured?
Yes, Sharon, 5 people had to be treated for smoke inhalation after an inferno tore through one of the cabins here at the Nerang Caravan Park. The blaze burst through the roof of one of the relocatable homes. The smoke was so thick it could be seen across the city.
All the properties are very close together, so just with the wind conditions, pushed that fire onto a neighbouring structure.
It's understood the cabin, which was destroyed, is owned by an elderly couple who have tonight lost everything.
All right, Georgia, thank you for that. Well, we were listening to American Pie, wanted a VCR, and seatbelts became compulsory. The year was 1972, but 50 years on, thousands of people still aren't buckling up. And from July 1, if you're caught, it'll cost you more than $1,000.
If this sound isn't enough to make you strap in, or this, then maybe the biggest fine increase in half a century is. From July, don't wear a seatbelt, you'll pay an extra $665 with a $1,078 fine.
And if you get caught twice within a year, it's double demerits and double the fine.
Since new cameras went live 4 months ago, almost 14,000 drivers and passengers have been snapped. Not wearing them, almost wearing them wrongly. Police and the cameras have seen it all.
People go to a wreckers and buy the piece that slots into the seatbelt so that the alarm doesn't go off. I just find it incredibly frustrating.
A seatbelt's worth is never more obvious than in a car wreck where one person didn't buckle up.
They died. The person with the seatbelt is unscathed.
The state government still won't say how many cameras there are, where they are, only that by the time you've been caught, the camera has probably moved. Speed, and it'll cost you a lot more too. 31 kilometres an hour over is up $435 to more than $1,000. A hip pocket hit designed to halve deaths during the next decade. Erin Edwards, 7 News.
A man has drowned after he was dared to swim in a Gold Coast lake. The 23-year-old was drinking with friends last night at the Emerald Lakes Golf Club. He jumped in the water around 9:45 and was seen struggling before he disappeared under the surface. He was pulled out but couldn't be revived. It's prompted a warning from police to avoid mixing alcohol and swimming. 4 people have been pulled from a rip at Surfers Paradise. Jordan Bissell, one of the rescuers, spoke exclusively to 7 News.
Sharon, only our cameras were there as the dramatic rescue unfolded off the Gold Coast's most popular tourist beach. Around midday today, the group was washed out to sea, swept off their feet by powerful waves, despite being within the flags. Even lifeguards had trouble getting to the group, with powerful swells flipping their boards as they paddled out. Surf coach Anthony Spanos was teaching a class and rushed to help.
The mother was frantic, holding a little boy up. Said, grab the boy. He put him on his board. He grabbed the board. I grabbed mum. We got pounded by another bunch of huge waves.
The group was quickly reunited with their loved ones back on shore. Paramedics say they weren't called to assess anyone, Sharon.
Thank you, Jordan. A report into the struggling Queensland health system has been slammed as a sham, designed to help elect a Labor federal government. The inquiry made a series of recommendations, but very few had anything to do with the state, which runs the system.
4:45 today and 10 ambulances sit parked at Prince Charles Hospital, unable to offload patients. The type of ramping at major hospitals that forced an inquiry into Queensland's health system. Now the report's in.
269 pages of deflect, distract, attack, and not once do the words ambulance ramping feature.
Health Minister Yvette Darth launched the review but instructed it to focus on parts of the health system with Commonwealth involvement.
This government is more interested in how things look than how they are.
The inquiry heard from doctors, nurses and paramedics about the strain on the system run by the state. The report makes 40 recommendations. Only 4 direct the state government to take action. The remaining 36 point blame at the Commonwealth. The timing of the release suspicious to some.
It's really geared towards assisting a federal opposition in their electioneering bid. So it's a little bit disappointing.
The state government says it's considering the recommendations but insists federal funding is the biggest issue. Critics of the report fear that beyond scoring political points, this exercise has done very little to improve the situation of Queenslanders engaged with the healthcare system.
What we really need to see in Queensland is 1,500 new beds and a workforce to sustain it. We need our hospitals to be running at 90%, not at 110%.
Wishful numbers when this remains the reality right now. Joel Dry, 7 News.
A new general is in charge of Russia's military operations in Ukraine. His nickname is the Butcher of Syria, and tonight he's planning a new offensive in eastern Ukraine.
A convoy 13 kilometres long. Russian tanks lined up in eastern Ukraine, ready for a dangerous new phase of the war with a new general in charge. This is the so-called Butcher of Syria, Alexander Dvornikov, dragged in by Putin after Russian troops were forced away from the capital, Kyiv. Expect brutality, more civilian casualties, as payback for the 19,000 Russian troops who've died on the front line.
This general will just be another author of crimes and brutality against Ukrainian civilians.
The invasion is heightened in towns already decimated, Mariupol and the second largest city, Kharkiv.
Ukraine won the battle for Kyiv. Now another battle is coming.
But civilian fighters are confident, backed even by Australians.
Is that your real name, Joe?
Might be.
This is Joe. He's cagey about his background, but did tell us he's from Sydney and is a public servant.
It's intense, yeah. The Russians love to use their artillery, and they use it a lot.
When he's not picking up a weapon, he says he's checking vehicles for booby traps left by the Russians.
Swiss Army knife, you know what I mean? I'll butter your bread or I'll cut something.
We met Joe when he and other international volunteers showed up to help exhume bodies at a mass grave in Bucha. There are 67 bodies in this gravesite in the grounds of a church. The clean-up in Bucha has already started. Council workers and teams of volunteers shoveling away tons of spent ammunition and the remains of blown-up houses. As they clean up the streets, they take the war wreckage to a dumping ground in an open field.
On this little red sedan, you can see the strip of white cloth across the roof, and they were flying that flag when the vehicle was hit. Their belongings are still inside. There's also some human remains have been left behind. If you have a look across this field, there are cars like that everywhere. Cars that people tried to escape in, some dying in the process. Have a look at this white van. Bullet holes have just raked down the side of it, and on the front, in Russian, the word for children.
There are more civilian cars here than fighting vehicles, with fears this war graveyard will be recreated in Ukraine's east in coming days.
Jeff, there's talk tonight that the US President might visit Ukraine. Is that likely?
Well, Sharon, the White House says there's nothing planned, but they're unlikely to signal their intentions given the risks involved. But they might want to rub more salt into Vladimir Putin's wounds following on from Boris Johnson's visit to Kyiv on the weekend. The US will send more military aid to help the Ukraine army. There are real fears of this Russian military build-up east of here. Vladimir Zelensky says it could be the worst of the fighting that we've seen so far, Sharon.
That is not what we want to hear. All right, thank you, Jeff. A new clue could be key to cracking a 10-year-old murder mystery. John Lazarow was shot to death in his Rochdale South home by masked home invaders in 2012. Police believe this ute, seen driving near Priestdale Road around the time of his death, is linked.
We will continue this investigation until those responsible are held accountable.
A $500,000 reward for information is still on offer. The Queen has revealed she was left very tired and exhausted by her recent bout of COVID. The 95-year-old made the admission in a video call from Windsor Castle to hospital staff and patients.
Welcome, or so I say e-welcome.
Performing royal duties remotely.
With no further ado, I will unveil the plaque.
Her Majesty formally opens the Queen Elizabeth unit at the Royal London Hospital. Beaming in from Windsor Castle.
Normally a project like this would take at least 5 months.
It's amazing, isn't it, what can be done when needs be.
Talking with staff and former patients, Asif Hussain was almost killed by COVID.
I'm better now.
I mean, I've recently left the wheelchair, so I'm walking about now.
I'm glad that you're getting better, and it does leave one very tired and exhausted, doesn't it, this horrible pandemic.
A revealing response, offering insight and empathy.
It obviously was a very frightening experience to have COVID very badly, wasn't it? And of course, not being allowed to see your relatives was very hard, wasn't it?
The monarch tested positive in February with mild cold-like symptoms. She spent a night in hospital last October and since has missed several key events. Her first public appearance in almost 6 months was at Westminster Abbey for her late husband Prince Philip's memorial. Her Majesty's mobility then and now a major factor in future engagements. This week, for the first time, she'll miss the annual Maundy Day church service, represented instead by Prince Charles and Camilla. Video calls to become commonplace.
Thank you very much indeed, all of you.
In London, Tom Hartley, 7 News.
Well, now for a look at the weather, and Tony, a sure sign the season is changing.
Yes, Sharon, we're now in mid-autumn and starting to see some slightly cooler nights, so fog will become a more frequent feature over the next few months. It's been mostly across inland parts of the southeast so far, though this morning we did see some of that low cloud creeping into western parts of Brisbane off the back of thicker fog out towards Ipswich. We're expecting more fog and a little bit hotter tomorrow. Sharon, I'll be back soon with the forecast.
We'll see you then. Thank you, Tony. He was accused of assault after an ugly incident in Brisbane last year. Next, why ex-Bronco Anthony Milford has had his charges dropped. The shocking moment a child was spotted unsecured on a show ride. What sent tourists scrambling in one of New York's best-known locations. And sky-high stupidity, a daredevil dangles from a crane in Surfers Paradise.
Coming up on 7 News, inside the southeast's suburb explosion. They're growing fast, full of families, and caught in a cost of living trap. So what's being done? Plus, time for action on the rental crisis. Our campaign keeps gathering speed, fighting for a fair go. 7 News is Queensland's news.
Former Broncos playmaker Anthony Milford is days away from resuming his NRL career after assault charges were dropped. The former State of Origin half pleaded guilty to the lesser charges of public nuisance and willful damage after a wild night out in Brisbane. The 27-year-old was given a 2-year good behaviour bond. His lawyer told the court he's lost hundreds of thousands of dollars in earnings. Organisers of Sydney's Royal Easter Show are blaming a lack of training after a young boy was left unrestrained on a popular children's ride at risk of being flung into the air. His mother says she can't believe her 4-year-old was placed in such danger.
The lady put me out with my seatbelt.
The ride just started moving and everyone just started screaming.
Did he remove the harness or was it?
No, it was just never put down.
The free-fall ride was not operating today. The Royal Easter Show says it will remain that way until an investigation is completed. France is preparing for a fierce presidential election rematch with Emmanuel Macron facing off against his pro-Putin opponent, Marine Le Pen. The two candidates beat 10 others to make it to the final round, with voters rejecting France's traditional parties.
The two finalists revealed on live TV.
De vous annoncer que les deux finalistes de cette élection présidentielle.
The centrist incumbent and his populist rival, and Emmanuel Macron's Paris party Relief and Reality.
Car ne nous trompons pas.
Let's not be fooled, nothing is decided yet. The debate we'll have in 2 weeks to come is key for our country and for Europe.
This was the first round of the election, Macron finishing at the top of 12 candidates with around 28% of the vote, Marine Le Pen 23%. They'll now face off just as they did 5 years ago. Macron beat Le Pen convincingly in 2017, and while tonight's results are certainly far better than recent polls had suggested, the feeling here is that he does have work to do to guarantee a second term. Le Pen is far right, sceptical of the European Union, but an admirer of Vladimir Putin.
We are extremely concerned that our co-citizens actually are willing to vote for such people, and we want to vote for a better Europe, a better France, and this cannot happen by voting for the puppets of Putin.
Even defeated candidates, alarmed by the chance of her winning, are urging tactical voting to block her.
Mais nous perdrons notre confiance.
When France heads to the polls again in 2 weeks. In Paris, Sarah Greenouch, 7 News.
Thousands of terrified tourists have run for their lives in New York's Times Square after a large explosion was heard near the popular sightseeing spot. The source of the blast is thought to be a series of manhole fires underneath the city caused by faulty cabling. Online scammers are getting smarter, but so are our banks. Next, the new technology to protect customers. Calls for more affordable housing as rents rise, what the major parties are promising. Queensland families counting the costs, could we see a childcare shake-up? And later, the luxury Gold Coast tower with a no kids policy. Traffic slowed to a crawl when a bus became wedged under a bridge in Graceville this morning. Emergency crews arrived at the Long Street Bridge around 11 o'clock. They used power tools and released the air in the tyres to free it. It's the second time in 8 months a bus has become stuck under the bridge. A new report has called for a major shake-up of childcare, making it profit-free to ease the costs for parents. But operators say their margins are already down to the bones and they're still recovering from lockdown losses.
As a mum and a childcare educator, Leilani Rose Fulton feels the squeeze.
Nappies, formula, snacks, dinners.
In Springfield, teacher Renee Dallinger does similar sums.
It's really expensive to send them, especially if they're sick. You still have to pay for that.
A new report says childcare shouldn't be funded by families but by the government.
We shouldn't be making profit out of little children, and we are wasting too much of taxpayers' money in propping up private equity.
While high-income suburbs are saturated, other parts of Queensland have childcare black holes.
If you're in rural or regional areas, you can't get early education.
Throughout COVID, you know, we were facing major issues of staffing shortages.
Queensland childcare operators say their profit margins are tiny and they're still trying to claw back losses during the pandemic.
When we're talking about increased wages for staffing and increased rents for properties and the increase of costs of providing quality early learning, where does that additional money come from?
An impossible bind with parents in the middle.
Regardless of one child or 5 children, the The juggle as a parent and being a full-time working parent is just as hard.
Katrina Blowers, 7 News.
Both major parties have promised to build more affordable housing, if elected, to help ease the growing housing crisis. New figures reveal rental prices in parts of Queensland are continuing to soar, with no short-term relief in sight.
Fashion student Sally Russo's fortnightly rent in Red Hill has just increased by $80.
We only have 24 hours to sign it, otherwise we have to evacuate the premises in 5 days, and I don't have anywhere to go.
New property data shows it's getting more expensive. The median rental price on the Gold Coast has risen almost 29% in the past year. Rents in Brisbane and the Sunshine Coast up 14%.
Nothing on the horizon right now to suggest we're about to see any relief.
And the vacancy rate is at an all-time low at just 0.5% on the Gold and Sunshine Coasts and 1% in Brisbane.
This federal election, Tenants Queensland is calling for a promise to build 8,000 new social housing properties a year across Queensland for the foreseeable future.
It'd be good to see something done to moderate housing costs. We'd also like to see Commonwealth rent assistance be increased by about 50%.
If elected, the Liberals are promising to build 15,000 affordable homes across the country. Labor's committed to 30,000 over 5 years.
And I'm paying too much for a very small unit.
But it's Sally's only option to keep the roof over her head. Crystal Etherington, 7 News.
Chris Bailey, the lead singer of legendary Brisbane band The Saints, has died. He formed the band in 1973 with friends from Corinda State High and burst onto the scene here and in Britain with their 1976 punk anthem, I'm Stranded.
Stranded, far from home.
The Saints were inducted into the ARIA Hall of Fame in 2001. They announced Bailey's death on social media, saying he lived a life of poetry and music. Chris Bailey was 65. Every year, thousands of Australians are swindled in online shopping scams. Now, Westpac has a new way to protect customers from dodgy overseas sellers. It's automatically blocking transactions that don't seem legitimate.
Diet pills, nutrition supplements, online dating subscriptions. Just 3 of the most common online shopping scams.
These types of services can be difficult sometimes to really adjudicate true value of if a diet pill is really working or how many particular people might be on a dating website.
Now Westpac is trying to tackle those scammers before the damage is done, automatically blocking suspicious transactions from overseas retailers and notifying customers by SMS.
Almost all customers, when we let them know that we've blocked it because we have concerns about the merchant, they are quite appreciative.
It's then up to the customer to call the bank if they want to go ahead with the purchase. Last year, Australians lost more than $8 million to online shopping scams, with more than 20,000 separate complaints made. Shoppers aged 25 to 34 reported the highest number of scams, while those aged 35 to 44 lost the most money.
With scams on the rise, more businesses are stepping in to help, including Telstra, which recently launched an SMS filter to stop scam messages before they hit customers' inboxes.
Sharing experiences with friends and family can help.
The more we're talking about it, the more it becomes less of a taboo topic.
And know the red flags.
Are they calling me and creating a sense of urgency? Does it look like it comes from a person of authority? Is it a too good to be true type story?
Gemma Acton, 7 News.
They're going to new heights and risking their lives for online fame. Next, watch as this daredevil dangles from a crane at Surfers Paradise. More Kinder products recalled from major retailers. Inside the southeast suburb explosion, what's being done to keep up? And a special birthday celebration for a Goodna flood victim. Shocking video has emerged of daredevils climbing a massive construction crane on the Gold Coast. The footage shows one man clinging on with only his legs as he dangles hundreds of metres above the ground next to the Meriton building in Surfers Paradise.
People are conducting these activities for notoriety on social media, but it just highlights the absolute risk and the danger.
Police say the man could face fines of nearly $3,000 and up to a year in prison for the dangerous stunt. From Moreton Bay to Ipswich, they're the southeast growth suburbs that will only get bigger. Residents want more action to cope with a population growing faster than the infrastructure.
New houses in new suburbs inside developments the size of cities. These are built for a booming population.
So the really important thing is that we understand those transport connections from day one. We understand where the ecological corridors are, where the schools are going to go.
Brooke Shellback lives in Springfield. The 60-kilometre commute between her home and work at North Lakes takes an hour and a half on a good day. She can't rely on public transport. It was costing her $150 a week.
I don't commute anymore because it does take a really long time to get to work. So I've been able to negotiate being able to work from home.
Growth suburbs are expanding so quickly, infrastructure is struggling to keep up. Moreton Bay is one of the fastest growing regions in Australia. By 2041, the population is expected to grow to 690,000. That's an extra 210,000 people in less than 20 years.
Moreton Bay Council are paying a lot of attention to ensuring that this growth front is master planned.
The state government has developed a team to cope with the challenges and ensure Queensland can keep up with the demand for housing and the infrastructure required. The top priority, Caboolture West.
Anyone that travels on our roads now knows that if we don't get it right from the start, your quality of life is affected.
We need to make sure that we are a connected region.
One that's changing and reshaping. Georgia Terry, 7 News.
A popular Easter egg is still on the shelves despite an urgent recall warning. Multiple Kinder Surprise products were pulled last week over potential salmonella contamination. The products have been available to purchase at major supermarkets, Target, Kmart, Big W and independent food retailers. Anyone with the products should return them for a full refund. Time to check how the market started the week. Here's our finance editor, Gemma Acton.
Thank you. Well, after a surge of excitement this morning, the ASX 200 gave up most of its gains and tracked along close to flat, finally closing up just 7 points at 7,485. The Aussie dollar is continuing to slide. That's after reaching a recent high last Tuesday, while oil is still teetering around $100. And last month, super funds bounced back from February's losses, with funds geared towards growth investments delivering the best performance so far in this financial year to date.
Police have seized more than 1,000 stuffed animals from a warehouse in Spain, thought to be connected with a smuggling ring. Among the haul were 400 protected species, including elephants, bears and a Bengal tiger. The collection is estimated to be worth almost $50 million. Would you ever stay somewhere your children weren't even allowed? Tonight, the bold plans for an adults-only tower on the Gold Coast. That story is just ahead on 7 News. And no kidding around in sport, Webby?
There never is, Sharon. Hello, everyone. Exclusive, Anthony Milford set to sue. Also, we'll take you inside the Lions den after their first loss. He's a hard marker, how three-time world champ Mick Fanning described his Bells Beach comeback. And Masters meltdown, where it all went wrong for Brisbane's Cameron Smith. It's a two-way battle for the Broncos' number 9 jersey, and Corey Pakes has implored the coach to give him a chance. Coming off 3 straight defeats, Brisbane's biggest challenge comes on Friday night against the reigning premiers.
Working out how to tackle an undefeated Penrith and counting on intel from former Panther Kurt Capewell.
I hope so. Yeah, bloody oath, it'll be good.
Brisbane keeping their cards close to their chest while the opposition leaked a potential weakness.
We always be aware about being complacent. That's one of the things that our coach always tells us.
There's no complacency for Corey Pakes battling Jake Turpin for dummy half.
Yeah, I think we both understand, I suppose it's a business at the end of the day and we want what's best for the club, and he's prepared to do that and I'm prepared to do that.
Friday was Pakes' first game of the season while Turpin's playing for his future. The fate of another former Bronco has taken a twist. Anthony Milford is set for a return in the NRL, but it won't be with Brisbane.
I'm close with Milf, obviously. He's a great mate of mine whilst he was here. He's a great player and everyone knows what he can do. So, yeah, it's great news for Milford. I wish him all the best.
Anthony Milford's assault charges have been dropped and is in talks with Newcastle, but 7 News can reveal the halfback will launch legal action against the Rabbitohs over contract complications, which left him unpaid since December. It's not the only Bunnies blow. Rep star Latrell Mitchell's torn his hamstring and will be sidelined for at least the next 8 weeks. In Townsville, Scott Drinkwater was overlooked in the opening rounds, but the fullback's been handed an opportunity to prove his place in first grade.
I won't be, again, kicking stones or anything. I'll just be being around the place, still being happy and training hard.
Katie Brown, 7 News.
The Lions have spent today regrouping and reassessing ahead of their biggest home game of the year. Collingwood, Easter Thursday at the Gabba, takes on new meaning after Friday's Geelong reality check. Captain Dane Zorko is inside the Lions den with Ben Davis.
Webby, licking their wounds, yes. Feeling sorry for themselves, no. Dane, because your team has always been about turning losses into learnings.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Ben. And obviously, although Friday night wasn't ideal for us, it was obviously pleasing today to come in and see blokes with notepads, a lot of people around the computer wanting to learn from their mistakes over the weekend. So that's a really encouraging sign for us, I guess, over the first 3 rounds. Obviously, winning some things potentially get brushed under the carpet, but it was great to see in there this morning a lot of blokes ready to learn again.
All right, well, what homework have you got?
I think defensively we were probably really poor on the night. You know, as a team we try and focus on getting our tackle percentage up around 66%. On the weekend it was as low as 51, so that's certainly an area that we'll need to improve on for Thursday night's clash.
Yeah, it's going to be a big one too. Collingwood at the Gabba. Last year there was that one-pointer, Zach Bailey right on the siren. Last time you were at the Gabba on Easter Thursday, they did a job on you, 62 points. It's your biggest loss in 4 years.
Yeah, they certainly did, and obviously that's something that we need to be aware of. Obviously new coach, a lot of young talent. They've got fantastic players all over the park. So
new game style too, from what I've seen.
Absolutely. They like to obviously hand pass a lot and get that ball going forward, similar to a Richmond and a little bit like Geelong last week. So we certainly need to be wary of that, but if we bring our best, we'll give ourselves a really good chance.
Fascinating insight as always, Orks. Thank you. It's Lachie Neale's 200th as well. So will the Lions be celebrating, commiserating? Either way, you'll be able to catch it live, free and in HD on 7.
Brisbane's Cameron Smith insists he'll use his Masters heartache as fuel to grow and come back stronger. A triple bogey at the 12th ended the new world number 5's bid to become our second green jacket winner. He finished tied for third, 5 shots behind winner Scotty Scheffler.
On Masters Sunday, one bad swing can ruin everything.
Just hasn't quite been my time yet. A couple of lucky breaks here and there. And I'll be putting the green jacket on, I'm sure, one day.
Back-to-back birdies to begin the final round had Cameron Smith within a shot of the lead. But those lucky breaks went Scotty Scheffler's way.
Oh, is that any good?
Smith got back to within 3, then it all unravelled on 12. The triple bogey 6 ended the Aussies' charge. Rory McIlroy shot a course record equaling 8 under 64 to jump above Smith into second.
Anything's possible.
That's especially true for Scheffler, who 4-putted the last and still won by 3. From winless on the PGA Tour to world number 1 and Masters champion.
I'm kind of glad I had a little hiccup there on the last hole. It made me a little less emotional so I can get through this interview.
Scotty Scheffler's dominant victory only narrowly outshadowing the other major headline of this year's Masters, the unthinkable return of one of the game's greats. Tiger Woods finished in 47th, his worst result in 24 visits to Augusta. But just getting here, 14 months after nearly losing his leg in a car wreck, a victory in itself. In Augusta, Georgia, David Woywood, 7 News.
He called it embarrassing, but Mick Fanning will have a shot at redemption in his return to Bells Beach. With F1's Mick Schumacher in the stands, the most successful surfer in the event's history could only manage a pair of 3s against Brazilians Toledo and Pupo. The 40-year-old wildcard forced into the sudden death round.
First heat I've been back for, since I left actually, and first time I surfed the bowl, but yeah, didn't really deliver in my heat, or I didn't deliver, that's one thing. Hopefully I can put on a better show, because that one was pretty embarrassing.
50-year-old Kelly Slater progressed on day 1, second in his heat to Aussie Owen Wright. Sharon, that's our sport.
All right, thank you, Webby. He's perhaps Queensland's most famous flood victim. The irrepressible Frank Beaumont turned 80 today. The Goodna local went through floods in 2011 and 2022, but his trademark optimism shows no signs of ageing.
Oh, if I could cross my legs, mate. When you get old, you can't even get one over the others.
Locals surprised him today, thanking him for fighting for flood victims. A battle that's not over. Tomorrow victims will seek to appeal the decision that SEQ Water is not liable for damages. Happy birthday, Frank. Well, time now for a quick look at what's ahead on Sunrise tomorrow.
Thanks, guys. Tomorrow on Sunrise, Australia's Lonely Planet discoveries.
500 unmissable experiences across every state and territory in the new Ultimate Travel List.
See you in the morning, Queensland.
A luxury tower with no kids allowed. Ahead, the Gold Coast developer trying to make it a reality.
And at the moment it's 24 degrees in Brisbane, sunny tomorrow, but a change is on the way. We'll have the forecast coming up next.
As Keating rose against Hawke, as Howard swept to power, Mark Riley reported it all.
People are getting ripped off, aren't they?
He knows Canberra inside out, and he will make sure you know what's going on. Mark Riley reports to you exclusively on 7 News.
If you're a parent, would you stay somewhere where your children aren't welcome? A 6-star hotel could soon be built on the Gold Coast, but its no kids policy is dividing opinion.
Sweeping views of the pristine coastline, an infinity pool, luxury living in the heart of surfers' paradise. There's just one thing missing.
I don't like buildings which don't allow kids.
When Seren is built, some residents and visitors won't be allowed. The sparkling tower, which will host residential floors and a 6-star hotel, is billed as an adults-only retreat.
That doesn't float my boat. I love families, I've got 4 kids. That's what life is all about.
In a city known for its family-friendly fun,
you can jump in pools and play.
Here it's drawn mixed reactions.
I like to stay places that accept children. That's our lifestyle, and I feel that we should have access to those places as well.
With all the kids here, probably is a good idea. You get over it over a couple of minutes.
The beachfront street at Surfers Paradise is becoming an exclusive address, with multiple luxury skyscrapers being built on Garfield Terrace. A development application was lodged with council today, but the developer declined to be interviewed. On the Gold Coast, Jordan Bissell, 7 News.
Now for a look at the weather. And Tony, it was a warm start to the week.
Yeah, Sharon, some beautiful conditions if you were lucky enough to get outside today. Sunny skies, top temperatures just above the April average. The tops into the early 30s, well inland. As usual, sea breezes kept coastal spots down a couple of degrees. And it was a cooler night too, as we normally see into mid-autumn as that humidity drops in the atmosphere. Canungra dropped to 14 degrees. Now looking at the bigger picture, not too much cloud over Queensland at the moment. We've seen a few showers around the central coast and north tropical coast, with a few storms up over Cape York Peninsula. Elsewhere, a cold front sweeping across southeastern states. That system should weaken as it moves north into tomorrow, but still bring onshore winds, cloud and showers to New South Wales before it arrives for us into Wednesday. In the meantime though, staying sunny and hot across much of southern Queensland. Around the capitals tomorrow, showers on the way for Sydney and Canberra. Dry and cool for Melbourne and Hobart. Tops in the high teens there. Don't forget an extra layer if you are headed south. It's easy to forget when we live here in Queensland. Back to the tropics, a shower or two in Cairns, and showers are possible there through most of the next week, but I don't think we'll see much rain further south around Townsville and Mackay. Just patchy cloud, maybe a shower around the central coast for tomorrow, then drying out. Heading south, a possible late shower around Stanthorpe and the Granite Belt, then mostly sunny for the other major centres. 15 to 25 in Toowoomba and Maryborough, pushing up to 30 degrees. Across the southeast, expect more morning fog, then a mostly sunny day to follow. Maybe just the odd shower developing over southern and coastal spots very late in the day. Now, the hazardous surf warning has been cancelled for tomorrow, but still plenty of waves on the beaches. Looking a little bit hotter again, tops of 30 degrees around Oxley, Kenmore and Chermside, make that 28 degrees in Sandgate. If you're taking the boat out, lightest winds early, south-southwest to 15 knots on Moreton Bay to start, then south-southeast in the afternoon and freshening to 20 knots at times late. Easterly swells still up at 2 metres offshore. And Brisbane, a mostly sunny Tuesday on the way, 19 up to 30 degrees. Keep those fluids up if you're outside. Sunrise is just after 6 a.m. And looking ahead, we get a change on Wednesday. Cooler, cloudy and a few showers, dropping down to 26 degrees. In Ipswich, tops around 26 or 27 from Wednesday through to Easter Sunday. The chance of showers drops after Wednesday. On the Gold Coast, still plenty of swell to keep experienced surfers happy this week. Showers most likely Wednesday, then that odd brief sprinkle at times over Easter. And on the Sunshine Coast, also cooling off rapidly after tomorrow and staying that way, 24 with a couple of showers on Thursday, then slightly drier through the long weekend. Sharon?
Let's hope so. Thank you, Tony. And that is all from us this Monday. Thanks for your company. From all the team, have a good night.